Mhm.
Mhm.
Good morning.
How are
Yeah,
you?
I'm fine. No, that's good. Thank you. Yep. Hey, Joel.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right. Good morning.
You in your office?
I am. Looks a little prison-like, Joel, here behind my desk.
Yeah.
Hang up a poster or something.
I know. I should. Good morning. Hey, Ariel, Michelle. Looks like Tom joined us as well. Hey, Sarah. Good morning. And Jacob.
Around 4, even a little bit earlier if you want.
Need two more of me. Here's Jacob.
See. Mm. Yes, I think we're waiting on, oh, here, Bob Turner is about to join, and then either Nancy or Bob Gale. They should be joining as well.
Okay, great. Morning, Bob.
Morning, Greg. Morning, everybody.
Hey, Jess.
Hi, good morning. That was odd. It had me join as like a webinar and I could see you all, but I couldn't interact.
We definitely want you to be able to do that.
Sorry we didn't see you at the dinner the other night, Greg. It was a nice time.
Yeah, I wish I could have been there. That was, I think, a great event from all I've heard. We'll get a little wrap up on that maybe at the end of our meeting today.
Good.
So, all right.
Nancy did a great job emceeing, didn't she, Ariel? She was awesome. She was funny.
She was funny. It was fun.
Let's see who's going to be our magic participant to establish our quorum.
We're one shy right now.
I think we are.
We are, yes.
Should I try texting Nancy, or do we know if she's coming?
Just texted Nancy, so hopefully she will respond or hop on. And then I am gonna send a message to Bob Gale too. I think if we have one or the other, we'll be fine.
Right.
I think both are RSVP, so. One.
Oh, here, it looks like Matt's joining, so that'll be good.
Great.
Oh, yeah. Perfect. Well, I will call our meeting to order. We did have an agenda circulated prior to the meeting. Any changes or additions to the agenda? If not, we'll move forward with the agenda as presented. We do have minutes from our prior meeting of April the 18th, again, previously circulated. So I would, if there are no changes, you're happy to suggest those. I would entertain a motion for their approval.
A motion to approve the minutes.
All right, Bob, do we have a second?
Joel second.
All right, thank you, Joel. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approval of the April 19 meeting minutes, please say aye.
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 All opposed? And motion carries for the approval of the minutes. All right, public comment. Do we have any members of the public joining us?
I don't think we do, but I do have two quick introductions that I can give to two new faces that we're seeing on the screen. We have Jill Carter, our open space bond manager, is here with us. I don't know, some of you may recognize her from certain public events, but just want to make sure she is introduced, as well as our a new land protection pro at Riverlink. We have Hannah Coates. She's also she's replacing a weed at Riverlink. So just want to make sure we introduced those two.
All right, great, and welcome to both of you guys. Jill, you're going to be kind of the rock star in the county, I guess, as all the bond issue money comes up, but welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
I think we have two projects we really want to get to. Tom Fanslow is with us from Conserving Carolina this morning. Good morning, Tom, and would be ready for you to start if you are.
Fantastic. Thanks, Greg. And thanks everyone for making room on the agenda today for a presentation. What I think will be a really good you'll agree is a really good project located in the Upper Broad River focus area. I'm just going to jump right into it. I was out there yesterday with Bob Gale, and I wish Bob were here today, but it's self-serving for me to say this, but Bob was really impressed with what he saw, and perhaps he'll be here later to share his comments. But where is this project located? It's 64.9 acres. It's located in the Upper Broad River focus area. As you can see, it's here just west of Highway 9. And we had previously submitted this tract and another 150 acres in a sort of an omnibus application to North Carolina Land and Water Fund. The Harrises are very motivated by conserving their land, and what they wanted to do was get a grant from North Carolina Land and Water Fund so that they could not only conserve the land that they own now through Brook Valley LLC, and this tract you're looking at is owned by their LLC, Brook Valley LLC, some other land that they own here to the south, and then they want to use the proceeds from the grant to buy out their neighbor and put a conservation easement on that as well. that grant wasn't funded, unfortunately. But some good things came out of it, which I'll get to in just a second. So here you see, though, we are just west of Highway 9 and the beautiful Upper Broad River, or as it's known locally, the Rocky Broad River. The tract is thickly forested. It's montane oak hickory forest, acidic subtype. And then in these deep draws is acidic cove forest. Up here, just on the boundary, is rich montane, a small patch of rich montane forest. But mostly this land is acidic type forest communities. The land, as far as we can tell, has not been industrially logged. Now, what do I mean by that? We don't see skidder paths. We do know that this land was used in the 19th century. There may have been forest grazing, probably. Undoubtedly, local folks harvested timber products for projects on the farm. Obviously, building materials, fence rails, shingles. But we don't see evidence that this tract was industrially logged. For whatever reason, it doesn't look like it happened here. But it is so thickly forested that it is actually, it's difficult to get here into the interior. So one of the great benefits of that came out of a unfunded land and water fund application was by filing that application, it triggers the North Carolina Natural Heritage Program to dispatch a biologist to inventory the tract. And you see elements of that larger project area because the state biologist visited all this land that was part of that land and water fund application that was not funded. And it's Jess Shaner. Some of you may know Jess Shaner with Natural Heritage Program. She inventoried the tract and she wrote up a site survey report that the Natural Heritage Program decided, yes, there should be a natural area designated for this tract. Now, as everyone knows, natural areas have no protection, but they are there to alert the public, to alert landowners, you have something special. So this is the Sand Branch Forest Natural Area. At this point, it doesn't have a extremely high ranking. It's ranked moderate by Natural Heritage Program. But the quality of the forest impressed Jess. Here, especially on this tract where I said the industrial logging apparently has not taken place, she found numerous trees in the 24 to 36 inch range DBH, diameter breast height. So it's verging on old growth. It's if there's not actual old growth on it, and that needs to be looked at maybe a little bit more closely. Just getting into it, what are we looking for? We're looking for transaction costs to be covered by this grant, totaling $45,000. You'll note that, and I took pains to point this out several places in the application, the Harris's will be back in fiscal year 2024 looking for $35,000 in acquisition money. So the matching funds, if you look at the, I'm not going to bore you with that, but the matching funds amount that we are hoping for a grant award of $35,000 to pay them for the conservation easement. So we're asking for $45,000 today, and then we'll come back to you and ask for $35,000 in the next fiscal year, seeking acquisition funding so that this conservation easement is not a pure donation, it will be a bargain purchase. And so we took that into account in calculating the matching funds here today, even though we have $1,000. If this were a pure donation, then this $190,000 would be $225,000. The Harrises, they just want this land protected for future generations. And so what does that mean? Well, no development, obviously, no agriculture, no wood crafting, no commercial forestry. They do want to reserve the right to manage for forest health. They're very concerned about the impacts of hemlock woolly adelgid. They want to be able to treat non-native invasive species, and having Bob Gale out there yesterday, that was extremely helpful to them to learn about a little outbreak they have of tree of heaven. And that's also something that Conserving Carolina, a service we provide when someone's conserving their land with us. We have some resources to help landowners, and that's available to the Harrises as well. Just looking at some of these values that the score is based on. Really, what this hinges on, I'm just going to focus on these two. It's natural areas protection and the water quality protection. And just about the Detroit Sand Branch Forest Natural Area that was designated last year. This project, it's a little bit upstream where the Natural Heritage Program has identified sea green darter, and that's a moderately uncommon fish species that's there in Sand Branch. And quite frankly, it probably makes its way up a bit. There are a lot of cascades though in Sand Branch, so we're not sure if it makes it all the way up to the Harris property because of those dramatic cascades in Sand Branch. And then, like I pointed out earlier, we have rich montane seeps, and we have a spray cliff community on Sand Branch. Water quality protection, 50% of the project lies within 300 feet of surface water. So we're protecting through this project, and because the Harrises are sacrificing their commercial forestry rights, we're protecting those critical headwater streams here. And as you see, 2,175 feet of streams at least flowing into Sand Branch, which is Class C trout water. I want to jump into, though, just show you the photographs and then take questions. And let's see, to do that. Here. What I hope you're seeing on your screen is a selection of photos of Sand Branch. These are the dramatic cascades that are on the Harris property. And just scroll through these. Sand Branch really takes a tumble, making its way down to the Rocky Broad River, and this project will help protect particularly this stretch of Sand Branch that you're seeing right here, and these first two rows of photos. I'm going to this is a winter shot. I hope you're seeing it. In addition to those dramatic cascades you just saw, there are long stretches on the boundary of the conservation easement of slick rock cascades like the one you're seeing here that tumble into a deep pool. And then you see down here at the bottom of the photograph, another slick rock cascade starts. I don't need to belabor it. We think it's a really good project. We've been working with the Harrises since 2016, and we're thrilled to be able to present this project to you and see what you have to say about it. I'm happy to take any questions.
All right. Questions from the group for Tom?
Looks like a wonderful piece of property. Wish I had a chance to visit it, maybe some other point. But
if on that, and thank you for saying that, I meant to say that earlier. Only Bob Gale got to see the property before today's meeting. Yes, the Harrises, the Conservancy, we want people to visit the property. If you want to see this property, the Harrises welcome you, and just if you'll just make contact with me through Ariel, or if you have my email, just contact me directly and we'll set that up. But we want anyone on LCAB who wants to see this project to get out there.
How about view sheds now? Can this property be viewed from anywhere, roads, or can you talk about that for a second?
We don't believe that it can, honestly. We don't see this project receiving view shed points. It's tucked way back there away from Highway 9 and other public vantage points. The Harrises are giving the Conservancy the right to have periodic guided hikes. So we could have members of the public in there, but it would be a small number at any given time.
This is Joe. I have a question. You mentioned for this project, and just for clarification, you'd be coming back to LCAB for $35,000 next year. And how does that, hypothetically, if you didn't get that money from LCAB, how would that affect this project?
Well, I would have to take the Harris's temperature on that. What they've told me is they're trying to break even. So they'll need to contribute for stewardship. They'll need to pay for their IRS standard appraisal. And they'll have some legal costs and accounting costs here. So, Joel, that's the best I can tell you. I can ask them.
Is that the
But
total cost, their total compensation that they're receiving?
I'm sorry, what?
Is that the total compensation that they're receiving for the easement?
Well, yeah, what we're asking, what we will ask in fiscal year 2024 is for $35,000 to pay for the easement. And they see that almost all being soaked up by the cost that they will incur in placing the easement.
Yeah, but that's a really low easement purchase amount. So I was just trying to, say, that's not a lot to ask for.
It's a bargain purchase.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And that's the only money coming to them. We're not going to, we sent this to Land and Water Fund. They liked it, but it didn't have, I think we bit off more than we could chew with that larger. And so now the Harrises are in a position where they just want to get this done, and they were really pleasantly surprised, as we all are, that the bond, I guess some weren't surprised that we had the polling to show it was going to pass, but they're thrilled that there's this opportunity for the bond funding.
Other questions, comments for Tom?
Matt, I think you're saying something, but we weren't able to hear you.
Is that better?
Any other questions?
Yeah. So that's 45,000 this year and 35 next. Is that correct, Tom?
That's correct. We
You have, can you show a graphic again of the overall project? Will we include future phases, or at least the overall property? Because this is just showing the current one, right?
Sure. Let me do it this way.
There you go.
Okay, so everyone hopefully is seeing Buncombe County GIS website. And I will start clicking. You probably recognize today the subject of today's discussion. That's Brook Valley LLC, owned by the Harrises. The Harrises own this tract. And honestly, they would like to see as much of this tract conserved as possible. So that's phase 2. And then phase 3 is a little bit more complicated. you see the name James David Barnwell. Let me get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this box. Okay. James David Barnwell has a life estate here, and the Harrises hold the remainder interest. So when Mr. Barnwell, and it's termed a life estate, but it's limited in terms of years. So the measurement of his life estate is not his life, it's a number of years. And that number of years is 15 years when the life estate was retained by him. And it has 5 years to go. So in 5 years, they'll own it in fee. But Mr. Barnwell is very supportive of what the Harrises are doing. So it's quite conceivable that he would join in signing a deed of conservation easement with the Harrises for a future phase 3 right here, which would take in all of Sam Branch. The reason we're starting out with phase 1 is, and let me bring up the aerial real quick here so you can see. Change my base map. Oh, there we go. Okay. There we go. If I click in here, yeah. We've got a more complicated, folks, we've got a more complicated situation on phase 2 because of some land uses by the Harrises. There's also a right-of-way through this property that serves a third party. So what we sensed with the application we sent in Land and Water Fund and trying to combine all 3 tracts into one project was there were too many hooks. It got caught up in that review process at Land and Water Fund because they had a lot of questions about this. So we thought we would simplify it in phases. This is also reflects the limited amount of funding that we can ask for in fiscal year 2023 from LCAB. But what we want to do, and I don't want to delve too far into it, is work with LCAB and find out how we can structure a conservation plan here for this larger tract and get most, maybe even, I won't say all, but most of it conserved in a way that will still allow the Harrises to use the property here in this area I'm circling. And then we have a developed / managed area here, here, and here. And again, these managed uses combined with the fact that there's a life estate here, it just seems simpler to present to you folks a phase 1 on this larger undeveloped tract, no plans for development, no plans for any type of management uses other than to manage for forest health, subject to a forest management plan approved by Conserving Carolina. So thanks for the question, Matt, but that's what we're looking at is building off, and that's why we call it the conservation anchor, is building off this conservation anchor here and adding these parcels. Now, the Gillums own this big tract over here to the east, and the Harrises have been in talks with their neighbor for a couple of years now about buying a large portion of this. That's still in the cards, and that would be conserved as well. They have no intention of developing it. You can see that the neighbor has done some extensive logging that happened in 2021.
Okay. Other questions? Or Tom, what's the approximate acreage for the potential phase 2, phase 3?
Right. So just to recap on phase 1, we're at 64.9.
65.
Yeah,
right?
65. And then just want to check my numbers here. So this larger tract to the south is just over 78 acres. We're probably going to need to either cut out, if we can't accommodate these uses. So if we just cut this area out, that would be subtracting about 8 acres. So we'd end up about 65 acres conserved here. And so we're just over 25 acres for the life estate property. And if we made exceptions for, which I don't think is a good idea on this tract at all, to make exceptions for these managed areas, because we don't want those more intensively developed. They're very lightly managed right now. So if we can accommodate those somehow, then we would have the entire 25 acres conserved here. And that's important because that's capturing a really long length of buffering Sam Branch for a really long length of its course through this life estate tract.
Okay. Other questions, comments? All right. Even though we've talked about these kind of future potential events, we can't really wait that. We do want to encourage landowners who have additional land to think about that. But the scoring for this project will be on the 65 acres presented. But it is helpful to know how it fits in. So I appreciate Matt's question in particular about this. And it looks like water protection is maybe the most significant contributor to value here, Tom.
Well, water, and then if I'm just, how do I get back there? Although it has a moderate ranking, I mean, this is a state designated natural area. We think that if this area is studied more intensively, and we think that will happen, for example, through a baseline documentation report that we would commission with the with funding from LCAP, there's a definite possibility this natural area ranking could increase to high or even very high, based on what we think we're seeing there. That has to be confirmed by a biologist. So, Greg, I flip a coin as to which one, but
right.
We can definitely say these headwater streams are really significant, and the communities associated with the streams, these rich montane seeps.
Nice to see a spray cliff conserved as well. Sounds like a good project, Tom. One question, would you anticipate, I'm guessing that you'd probably come back to LCAB pretty soon in the new fiscal year to ask for that additional 35,000. Is that what we should expect?
We'll be back probably in July.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
Good to know.
And frankly, after we have worked some things out with the board, in 2024, we'd expect to submit one of these other phases as well. In fiscal year 2024.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions for Tom? We've got the materials. We'll take a look at those. Ariel and Avni, we have scheduled meeting next week, I think.
Yes.
To actually handle our voting on this particular one. So we'll be back to you, Tom. If anyone has any supplemental questions or really wants to go see the property, touch base with Tom, and I'm sure they would be happy to accommodate that.
Definitely. Thank
Tom,
you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. We appreciate
Thanks,
your
Tom.
time.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. Michelle, we're on to you for the next great project.
Thanks, Greg. Good to see everyone. I'm going to share my screen here. All right, can you all see the slide and my cursor? Okay. Well, thanks again for taking the time to review this project. The project that I'm presenting is called South McDarris Ridge, and it's located in Weaverville. This is just a reminder of where SAHC works. We've got 6 geographic focus areas, and this property is located within our Black Mountains focus area here. So the property is shown here in red. And it is approximately 171 acres. It ranked as a top priority in SHC's 2018 prioritization GIS model. It does touch Pisgah National Forest, and I noted on the maps that I submitted with the application that this is a data error where it looks like there's actually a gap in between the property and Pisgah, but it is not an actual gap. We have a previous survey that shows that it does touch at a point. So for context, of course, here's the Blue Ridge Parkway coming up towards Craggy. This is the Woodfin watershed here. And the recently acquired Reams Creek Bowl property is here in blue. And of course, Pisgah and the Snowball Mountain Trail runs right here, coming off of the Mountains to Sea Trail. So the Snowball Mountain Trail comes just within a few hundred feet of the property boundary on this easternmost tip. And McDarris Ridge itself runs along this long boundary that kind of, it's really like two ridges, and I've got another map that shows them better, but on the north boundary here. It's within a wildlands network connectivity corridor in the Tier 1 corridor. And this just shows some of the other natural features. We've got an Audubon Society important bird area, which is the pink birds layer over here. And then you can see the black crosshatch. This is the Reams Creek Bowl natural area, state designated. And then here's the Woodfin watershed Camp Sequoia natural area that's nearby as well. And I did a little bit of historic research. I think Nancy probably knows more about the history of this area than I do. There is history in the beach community of Reams Creek Valley, and there's some historic church and cemetery that are like just about a half a mile away from this property. So here's a zoomed in view of the property itself. It's entirely forested. And on this northern point, high elevation point here, is what Josh Kelly believes is potentially an acidic cove, an acidic glade, maybe a low elevation acidic glade. And there's really prominent rock outcrops that are visible from various other locations on this. And it also has 4 headwater tributaries that flow directly into Reams Creek, which is classified as Class C and trout waters. There's one building area that the landowners are going to reserve down here at the bottom. Throughout the application, I cited that it would be up to 5 acres. The area we've drawn is actually 3.5 acres. But I just wanted to give a little bit of wiggle room for when we actually get the surveyor out there. The original idea had been 10 acres, so we redrew it after our site visit. And so something less than 5 acres, I think, is what it'll end up being. And they do wish to prohibit commercial timber harvest. This property is pretty steep. It hasn't been harvested in a while. There are some invasives on the bottom, and just as a concern for preserving the soils and the steep slopes, the water quality, and stopping the spread of invasives on the property, there's not going to be commercial timber harvest on the site. This is just a Google Earth view where you can kind of see how it lies on the landscape here. And a couple of pictures. This is a point that is just north of that excluded, or sorry, the included building area. And this is a view, I think, towards the Woodfin watershed here on the property. And this is a view of what the building area, which is what they called the former Cook's home site, was located on the bottom of the property. And this is a view. So the folks that own this property also own the Camp Sequoia, the historic Camp Sequoia property. We do have a small conservation easement on that. Their names are Klaus and Debbie. And this is the Camp Sequoia property. And this is just a view of the South McDarris Ridge property from there. So this right here is that rock outcrop and the ridge that forms that northwestern boundary. And then this really is like the whole property right in here. And we were lucky enough to be there when there were a lot of fringed Phacelia and Trillium blooming. I'm glad that Sarah and Bob got to join us for that visit. So there's lots of spring wildflowers there. And this is me standing on our Reams Creek Bowl property, which is just a couple ridges to the southeast. And here again is that view of that rock outcrop. So the South McDarris Ridge is sort of in this general area. So the landowners are generously donating 100% of the conservation easement value for this property, which is pretty rare. We're extremely grateful. I apologize that I neglected to change to take out this, ignore this map. That's from Lake Eden. I'm so sorry. But this information is all correct. So the full project budget, which includes what we estimate the value of the conservation easement to be, plus the transaction cost, is about $561,700. They're donating the vast majority of that value in the conservation easement. We estimate the full transaction cost to be about $81,700. And we are requesting from the Land Conservation Advisory Board $47,200 to cover the transaction costs. I noted there's a new line item that I noted in the application that I'm requesting the board to consider, which is a couple $1,000s for a biological inventory. And that's not something that SAHC has conducted for our baseline documentation reports, which is part of the conservation easement process. One of the documents that's required. We hired a national level attorney to revise our conservation easement template. And through that review, she recommended that we start doing biological inventories to support our baseline documentation report. That is not something that we usually do to that level of specificity. So where possible, we're trying to roll in some extra funds to request that. So I've included that in the baseline line item. So the matching funds are SAHC's cost and time to produce the actual baseline report, and I think it's $2,000 I put in there for the biological inventory, and that would be done by Equinox. So again, the matching funds are the landowner donation of value, and then we are going to request from a private philanthropic donor the portion of transaction costs not covered by this grant. So this $47,200 represents about 8.4% of the project budget, leveraging 91.6% of the funds for the project. So that's a quick overview of everything, and I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all might have.
Jill, you mentioned no commercial logging activity. Will there be some type of forest health management plan or activity placed?
The conservation easement will require a forest management plan if they want to do any work on 1 acre or more of the property. So for example, if they are clearing anything for the home site, or if they're doing any invasive species management, anything that requires over 1 acre impact on the property will require a forest management plan. If they don't plan on doing any active forestry, then no forest management plan would be required. And they're not in present use value. So they don't have that PUV tax deferment.
So if they came back in, say, 15 years and decided that they needed to manage in some way, would they have to modify the easement?
No, as they just wouldn't be allowed to do like purely for the purpose of earning income off of the sale of trees. They would not be able to do that, but they would be able to do forest health management without modifying the easement. It's a good question. Yeah.
Michelle, is this property adjacent to their Camp Sequoia property?
It's not adjacent, it's nearby. So do you see these little this triangular piece that comes up off the Woodfin watershed here?
Yes.
Camp Sequoia is right in there. And these triangular pieces are the conservation easement section of that Camp Sequoia property. And
Okay.
that was sort of an unusual easement. It was one of the rare instances where previous owner put in their deed that
Yeah.
they had to put a conservation easement on. So like
Yep.
a small percentage.
So is this property we're talking about today, I know Klaus and Debbie own it now. Was this Kathy Triplett's property?
Kathy Triplett's property is just adjacent to the north right here.
Okay, the reason I'm asking is because I've never seen McDarris spelled with an E.
It's possible I've misspelled it.
Yeah.
I think there are some things that do spell it with an E, but
USGS shows it with an E. I looked at that too because I've seen it. I thought it was different as well, but I checked the USGS and I think that they have it AIRES. Yeah.
Because her husband's last name was McDarris, and McDarris Cove is very well known here in Rims Creek, and it's not with an E.
Yeah.
So just before we close anything, let's make sure we've got the proper spelling of that of it. But that property, if this is a property, I think it is. This is great. It is very steep. It is very steep right there. But Klaus and Debbie are doing a great job of picking up property in the bowl and trying to be good stewards. So this is a really good property for them. Yeah.
Yeah, and they approached SHC when this property was available for sale. They approached SHC and said that they wanted to buy this specifically so they could work with us to protect the land.
That's good. Yeah.
And I will say too, it is steep. You can see the topo lines, but there's an old logging road that brings you up to right about here, and there's definitely some building sites up there. It lays, once you get up into this area, there's sort of a semi-flat area where you could definitely put some homes. As we were going up, there's a few spots. So the conservation easement is extinguishing real valuable.
That's good. Yeah, good. Great. This looks good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions for Michelle?
Well, I have a quick comment. I was able to test the four-wheel drive on my new F-150 truck going up the road, and I didn't drive off a cliff or get stuck. But it is a wonderful piece. I think Sarah could second me on that. It's a beautiful piece. The Klaus and Debbie are truly wonderful people who are, doing this. It's a big piece of land that they bought to conserve. We also had the treat of going to visit Camp Sequoia, which was an amazing property that they're fixing up, all these old cabins from this old camp, and really wonderful people. As far as view and water, both I think would rank very highly. But it's a terrific couple and a terrific piece, in my opinion.
It really is. And as a side note, they do welcome limited meetings to be held at the Camp Sequoia property. And I think that would be a really nice place for the LCAB to get together and meet if you have an opportunity to.
I would second that. I had the pleasure to go out there and meet Klaus and Debbie, or we met Klaus that day. It was great to see them at the conservation dinner. But although the property is really steep, that road was manageable. I mean, I wasn't driving the truck; I was riding with Klaus. But that road is in good shape and not eroding soil to, you know, and they're maintaining it. They have
Mhm.
a caretaker that's helping, who lives down the road, I believe.
Will they continue to maintain that, Michelle, once it's placed, the easement?
Absolutely, yeah. Maintain the road, right? That's what you're asking?
Yeah. Sorry.
Other questions, comments? Looks like another good proposal here too today, so that's great. Any questions about this biological inventory as a component of our reimbursable kind of cost structure? And Michelle, you or Tom, if you believe that this is going to be part of the new support standard for accredited agencies, I think that's great and helps buttress our funding of that inventory. But if anybody has questions about that, I'd rather talk about it now.
Yeah.
I think it's probably appropriate to do that. But I'd love to hear other input. And Tom, if you have any input on what Conserving Carolina is doing or thinking about in that regard, that would be helpful as well.
When they
Yeah,
inventory, they identify the extent of streams?
Say that again?
I said, when they do the biological inventory, will they identify the extent of streams?
That's a good question. I'll check with Owen Carson on the details of what, because this is new for us. I think he's just done one so far for a project that Hani was in charge of. So
The
I'm not
reason
sure.
I ask is when you know, obviously when you get on the ground, there's information that you find that you might not find elsewhere. The maps that are presented, at least for the group, are showing flow lines. When you look at the NC stream classifications map, it does not show any streams on that section of property. That does not mean that it's not important, nor that it's not part of the watershed, nor that it's valuable, but that's something that I think should be considered. And so that's the only reason I ask about the biological inventory. I think those would be beneficial in all instances if possible. And I think that we should support it as a group, especially if they are picking up some of those extents so that there's an accurate representation of where the surface water actually starts, even though we need to understand that that's not all that makes up a watershed or what contributes to protecting the watershed when we make recommendations to approve these easements.
Yeah, and I'm sure too, I can just ask Owen to include that in his inventory. Yeah.
We at Conserving Carolina, we always do biological inventories. We've never done, except for very early in our existence, we did baselines in-house, but for decades now, literally decades, I can say, we hire an independent consultant. And there are 3 consultants that we choose from, one of which is Equinox and Owen Carson. So I can confirm Owen Carson, any of the consultants we work with, including Owen Carson and Equinox, will water, including seeps, springs, ephemeral streams. All the consultants we work with, including Owen Carson, are very thorough. So, for example, the map I showed you, although Owen hasn't been to that property yet, we did ground truth that water. So that's water is actually there. Also, Natural Heritage Program ground truth that water. We use, in addition to Equinox, we use Helia, which is owned by Lloyd Raleigh, who's well thought of. He's consulted with Tim Sweeney at Fox Creek Wilderness years ago and did great work there. And the advantage of using Lloyd is he's also a registered forester, so he brings that talent and skill set. And then the third consultant that we routinely use is Kevin Caldwell, who owns Mountains to Sea Ecological. we're just thrilled with all three of these consultants, and they're all excellent. And when we select among them, it's usually due to the, finding a slot in their schedule. Yes, when you order a baseline document from one of these consultants, you get a very detailed, thorough inventory of what is in the property in terms of natural resources, as well as anthropogenic features. They're the ones who sometimes find the stills for us, that vestiges of the stills that are up there in the hollows. So it's great to have these consultants on the team, because
that's a different use of branch water, I think.
It's a water quality indicator.
Yes, it is. Well, thank you both. Again, I don't have any issues with that being a component part. And we're not micromanaging the transaction side, but I think it's great for us to have a general understanding of what those are. And, it sounds like that's a valuable addition here. So
I think so too. We've done general, not a full inventory, but of course we, document the conservation values in the baseline. That's the purpose of the report. And so we're just sort of trying to take it to the next level.
All right, sounds good. Any other questions? All right, Michelle, you want to tell us anything about updates from Southern Ave?
I'm going to pass the baton to Jess.
Yeah.
On that. She might be more prepared for that update than me.
Okay.
Not much to update on. We haven't closed any new projects in the county since our last meeting. But as you can see with Michelle's projects, we've got a lot going on in the county. We've got a lot of active projects that this board has supported or recommended to the commissioners to support. So we're trucking along. I think our, at least on my end, the thing that will close the soonest most likely is the Full Sun Farm Phase 2 project. Despite the fact that it's NRCS funded, hopefully that one will be closing by this fall. And then Michelle, I think, has Covington CE will be closing pretty soon as well.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Tom, anything from Conserving Carolina?
Thanks for asking. Right now, we're pursuing 2 additional projects in the Upper Broad River focus area. And we hope to report back. One is located next to Chimney Rock State Park. I think that's the forgotten state park in Buncombe County, but Chimney Rock State Park is in southeastern Buncombe County, and we're working with a prospective conservation purchaser. So this is someone who's interested in buying some land next to the state park and conserving it for that purpose. And I hope to have more to report on that soon. And then there's another project off of Highway 9. I think that landowner has also contacted SHC and they want to receive proposals from both organizations. So I know that we're supposed to present in July to that landowner. And so maybe, the important thing is that a landowner conserves land, and whichever organization they want to work with, that's great. We just need to get this land conserved in the Southern Blue Ridge. So that's my update. We'll see. We'll have a lot more to come back to you with in July, I think.
All right. Hannah, you want to talk to us about RiverLink a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Not a ton to report on as I'm mostly getting situated in this position, but I will say that we're well underway in the construction of Karen Crichton Nolan Park. We're actually ahead of schedule, but we're hoping to have that open, the Greenway portion, the end of this summer. So super excited about that, and going to start planning for the huge dedication ceremony. Yeah, that's the main thing to update on. So
great. Well, welcome again. We're excited to have you be a part of us. Ariel, you want to talk about Ag Board projects?
Yeah, sure. We're kind of lining up our plans for our grant applications for this fall. We had 2 donation easements approved by the commissioners a couple weeks ago. So we're starting up. We have one out in Fairview area and one in the Weaverville area. So that's exciting to start up on those. I guess over the last month or so, we've, put a lot of effort into the conservation dinner, which went really well last week. And yeah, excited that went well. We have one under our belt and we can, keep doing them every year now, hopefully, as funding keeps, coming through. So yeah, I will say we had a good turnout. I think we had about 100 people there. And we had 35 plaques to give away. We had a portion of the landowners show up. You can't force people to come. You can only provide them with the information and the opportunity. So we do have some plaques that we the Land Trust and Soil and Water need to kind of get to our landowners. But I've only heard positive things from the community, and the Ag Advisory Board had very positive experience too. So they were very happy that they were involved and invited to be a part of the event. So
Ariel, what's the one project that I guess was closed on and everything in Weaverville? Which one's that?
The one that the commissioners just approved. Is that what you mean? Yeah. So we haven't closed on it. We just got the funding for it. That one is Amy Worthen and Jason Krekel. They own about 24 acres off of Paint Fork. Is that right, of me? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm blanking.
I mean, it's off of like Gavin Branch, but it's like it's I think Maney. Well, I'm totally blanking on names. Paint Fork or Maney Branch turns into Paint Fork and connects between Weaverville and Barnesville. Anyways, it's off that area. So close to a couple of our other conservation easements in the Barnesville area, but it's technically a Weaverville address. Mostly forested and with lots of water on the property.
All right. Well, thanks for. Yeah, go ahead, Ariel.
2 weeks ago, I guess at this point, the commissioners did approve our land conservation ranking criteria for the open space bond. So at this point, technically, Land Trust and the Farmland Preservation Program can request to start that request process for bond funds. So we basically are using the LCAB existing evaluation system, some slight edits to the Ag Advisory Board system, but the process will remain the same. We'll still need to have, the Land Trust members come, present, do a site visit, have a vote, and bring it to the commissioners. It'll follow that same, process. It'll just be, now we have access to that big pot of money. So
that sounds great. And before I give Jill an opportunity to tell us a little bit about what she's doing, how it ties to that, Ariel, give us your schedule end of the month.
Yeah. Well, actually, right? I have it'll be July. So like my due date is July 10th. So hopefully another month and a half. I got a lot to do in that month and a half. But so we'll see. But Ovni is your gal for the summer, and she is, fully ready to take it.
Great. Jill, you want to have any comments for us?
So I mostly wanted to join today just to introduce myself to those of you that I haven't met yet, but I am managing that open space bond that Ariel just mentioned. And we have been hard at work at kind of designing those evaluation criteria for the 3 project types under the bond, and as well as kind of the application process for the other two components. So as Ariel mentioned, we're going to follow the same process for conservation easements that we've been doing. But for greenways and passive recreation, we're going to be running a more formal application window and a request for proposals for those two project types. So a lot of my work right now is getting those two components ready. But we are excited that the conservation easement criteria was adopted on May 2nd. And so we'll be able to move forward with using bond funds for conservation easements. And the easements will actually be the first project type to be funded through the bond, which is very exciting.
Great, thank you, Jill.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, as we wrap up, I want to thank Nancy for doing a great job emceeing the donor event. I heard lots of good things about that. I'm sorry I could not be there. But I think that event is very important for us to recognize those donors and the people who are doing the heavy lifting of taking value away from their assets for the benefit of all of us. So, you know, I think it's really important that we do that and do it well. So if you have any comments for improvements or ideas about that, maybe let Ariel and Avni know if you have anything. I'm sure there's so many things that went well. You know, good to mention the positives too, but if there's areas we could improve our donor experience at that event, you know, and you were there to see it, please let them know by email.
Yeah, good.
All right. That sounds great. We've taken a little bit more time than normal this morning, but two important projects we'll get back and vote, kick the tires on those a little more next week for approvals. Thanks everybody for your time. Anything else?
One last question. How much money do we have left in our budget for the fiscal year?
We have enough to cover these two requests. I don't have the exact amount on the top of my head, but I know after if the board approves these two requests, we will have actually allocated over the 750, but we had some rollover funds from last fiscal year. So we have plenty to cover these two requests. I mean, we'll be close to allocating it all, but yeah, we'll definitely have allocated over the 750. And I will say just one little shout out. The special meeting that Greg mentioned is next Thursday. That's the 25th at 3 o'clock. So we'll send out the Zoom link to remind you. Should only take a few minutes to be able to do that. And another reminder, we've sent out the evaluation link, so you go ahead and evaluate these two projects, and so we can have them all evaluated by next in order to vote on them.
Yeah, it's really important. If you can just jump on, we need a quorum for that. So please, let's do that. And I'll try to run that pretty efficiently. I think we have all the information we need.
Perfect. Thank you.
Make decisions there. All right. Thanks everybody for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Stand adjourned.
Bye, everybody.
Thank
you.